Our sermon this morning is based on Matthew 11:25-30, entitled Lighten Up. Are you stretched too thin? Do you have too many irons in the fire? Is your candle burning at both ends? Canadians are stressed out, frazzled, frizzled. In many cases, we could say we're a burnt-out society. We are a society of workaholics. We work from sunup until sundown. Some of us don't feel productive until we're juggling 20 things at once. Our hard-working ways have served us well in the past century, though. It helped this great nation fight 2 world wars and get out of a Great Depression. But with the 1950s, new technology was supposed to give us a life of ease and comfort. If you watch cartoons from those days, you will find an imaginative world filled with time and work-saving gadgets and gizmos. Dinner would be prepared with a push of a button. Cars would drive themselves, and computers would be a wave of the future. In the 60s, the government predicted that advances in technology would radically change how many hours people would work a week. They forecast that the average Canadian would be working 22 hours a week within 20 years. The great challenge, the experts said, would be figuring out what people would do with all that excess time. Over 50 years later, and after major advances in technology, life hasn't slowed down. Technology was supposed to make our lives easier and simpler, but they have only made them more complex and busier. Because of cell phones, tablets, laptops, and digital watches, people can't escape even from work when they're at home. And the sad thing is, a lot of us are connected 24/7, 365 days a year. We have the mentality that busyness is a good thing. It means that we are pulling our weight, that we are a productive member of society. Rest and relaxation is considered a weakness or being lazy. If you sit around and do nothing, sometimes you're judged. We are a country without the Sabbath, without rest. We work, work, work until the day we die. Even those of you who are retired have told me you work more now than you did when you were in the workforce. Although this workaholic attitude has its benefits, it leads to a lot of serious problems, like heart disease, stroke, poor eating habits, headaches, body aches, and other personal health problems. It also causes broken relationships with spouses and children. I'm going to ask you, do you remember the song, Cats in the Cradle in the Silver Moon? That song is about a father working and working with no time for his son. And at the end, when the father finally had time, he realized that his son had become just like him. No time for anything else but work. This song is a reality for a lot of people. People work so hard to take care of their families financially that they miss out on the simple things in life. We weigh ourselves down with heavy burdens, and sometimes it's so heavy it's enough to break us. And if you find yourself in that kind of position, Jesus' words from Matthew this morning has an invitation for you. Come to me, all of you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The yoke of today is different than the first century Judah. In those days, the yoke was an unfair interpretation of the law. The religious leaders placed so much in the laws and the expectation of people's lives to follow those laws, they had no time for anything else. The leaders themselves did not follow it. They did not practice what they preached. The people became so burdened down by these laws of their religion that worshiping God became a requirement, not a joy. Jesus invited the people to take charge of their unfair teachings of religious leaders and take the yoke, which was much lighter and easier. It is a yoke of love and peace. It is a teaching that leads us to a new life and improvement, not just of self, but also of community. Jesus' focus was on the love and grace of God, not to strictly have the adherence to the law, but to believe that the Spirit of God in Jesus was one of love, to love God and love your neighbor. Jesus invited the people then to better themselves. Come and leave your burdens here and take on my yoke, which is easier. We must understand that it's not a removal of the burdens. We do not just drop off the burdens and go home empty-handed, because Jesus knows in time we'll pick them up again and we'll have a whole new set of burdens, and we will be right where we started. Instead, Jesus calls us for burdens exchange. Drop off what you have and take on my yoke, which is easier and lighter. Drop off your load of worry, overwork, selfishness, greed, anger, and despair, and take on a load of peace, hope, and love. Following Jesus is not a piece of cake. There are requirements and there must be changes made. However, the load that Jesus asks us to carry leads to much better things: a life of love, family, church, community, selflessness, and rest. Jesus is inviting us to come and exchange our heavy load for one that is far easier and yet leads to greater rewards in life and in the next, because life goes by pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around for a while, you could miss it. Jesus invites us to take some time away from ourselves and focus on God and God's amazing creation, which is all around us. Jesus invites us to rest from our hectic schedules and to take on a Sabbath. Come to me, all of you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That is the invitation that we have from Jesus this morning. Exchange your burdens and your yoke for one that is lighter and easier, and for the one that reaps a truly bountiful reward. The invitation has been made. Will you answer it?